All right, we're going to start things off by talking about the team that puts the L in MLB history, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, a team that has not won a single game since the MLB trade deadline when they decided not to trade Shohei Ohtani, instead to be buyers, to trade for Lucas Giolito, Randall Grichuk, and C.J. Cron. And yet here we are. Is this the biggest disaster of a team not selling at the deadline in MLB history?
In MLB history, okay, that's an interesting one. I can't think of a close second right now, but again, there's a lot of MLB history to work through. I remember, I want to say it was the Cardinals in 2015 who traded at the deadline and then ended up falling back to a wild card spot. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong year, but I mean, there's a couple bad ones in there. The Angels, this is what I said when the trade deadline happened. Okay, there are four really good teams in the American League right now. We talked a little bit about this in a previous video talking about the Max Scherzer trade. It is Tampa Bay, it is Baltimore, it is Houston, and Texas. All are four very good teams. All four have not separated themselves from the pack. This year, Texas and Houston are basically just doing a Spider-Man meme of each other. Those teams are basically constructed exactly the same way. And so those four teams all made the exact same trade at the trade deadline. They all traded for a number 2 starter. Every single team. The Orioles traded for Jack Flaherty. Tampa traded for Aaron Savali. Texas traded for Max Scherzer. Houston traded for Justin Verlander. All made the exact same trade. None of them separating themselves from the pack, but they're hoping they will when the playoffs roll around. And the Angels wanted to be that fifth team. They wanted to be that fifth team to get in the game because they traded for a number 2 starter in Lucas Giolito. They traded for 3 hitters in their lineup, and it has all crapped out. But the thing I said at the trade deadline is if the Angels do make the playoffs, because at the time they were only 3 games out of the wild card, if they make the playoffs, they will have just as good of a chance as any of those teams, because it means that from June onward, the Angels will have played as good of baseball as each of those 3 teams. And since I said that, they have gone 0-5 and are now, I believe, 6 games out of the American League wild card. So, they have crapped the bed, and Shohei Ohtani is literally crying on the bench at the sight of what the Angels have become.
You are correct. As of today, the Angels are 6 games out of the wild card. Now, I think we all kind of recognize it was a ballsy decision by them either way to keep him, to not move him, not to try and get some sort of value for Shohei Ohtani. And I think what makes this one a tough non-trade in hindsight is knowing, even if you would have got similar value, because you're never going to get similar value to what Shohei Ohtani is. I mean, let's just face it, like the amount of WAR this guy puts in alone, just based off his ability to hit and pitch, is something that any other MLB player just can't even match. However, you would have got something. You at least got a team's first, second, third prospect potentially. Even if it's just a rental, there was a lot of desperate teams at the deadline that would have tried to make this work if the Angels would have been a little bit more open to the possibility. Like, we've seen a lot of trades come together in the 11th hour, and the Angels, I think it was like 2 days before the deadline, actually made the statement that they weren't going to trade him. So they put their foot down on the no trading pretty quickly, and with that door closed, like, other MLB teams just said, okay, well, I guess we have to pivot to our second, third trade options. Since Shohei's not available. Like, a team like the Yankees just decided to stay quiet at the deadline because they felt like there wasn't any premier bats, which Shohei would have been. He would have been that premier bat in addition to being at least a team's third starter at worst.
I mean, he was an all-star starting pitcher this year. So, I mean, the problem is health with his pitching, right? He has a blister on his hand or he has an elbow issue. It's not that his abilities, it's just his ability to stay healthy while pitching. And to your point about the trade and the Angels deciding a full week before the trade deadline, because remember, the trade deadline was on Tuesday, August 1st. They traded for Lucas Giolito, I want to say like Monday, July 25th. Like, they were a full week ahead of the pack in terms of making the trade deadline deal and pulling Shohei Ohtani off the market. So my thought on that was that I was kind of seeing it both ways. Like, I could defend the Angels going all in and trying to actually buy for once during Shohei Ohtani's tenure with the Angels. This is the first time they've been buyers since Ohtani's been on the team. So I could defend that, and I could also defend trading him away.
I did see the growing sentiment that Shohei Ohtani may be open to the possibility of re-signing with the Angels. So I get kind of that them wanting to show that they're trying to do something over there by getting pieces. Again, Cron, Grichuk, and Giolito, respectively. Them being buyers at the deadline to make one final push to say, hey, Shohei, we think we can get you to win here. But this is the opposite effect. This is like, okay, we're going to make all these trades and we're going to be worse after the deadline. Like, 0-6. Like, I'm not surprised a lot by what the Angels do because, again, we saw another fantastic performance by Shohei the other day where he has a stolen base, reaches base 4 times, hits his 40th home run in the season, and they still lose that game because their closer gives up a grand slam in the 9th inning. That's kind of stuff that's very par for the course when I think about the Los Angeles Angels. However, like, I do sympathize with them being in an unenviable position of having to trade away potentially the greatest player of all time. You think about like what we think about Boston, like when they had to trade away Babe Ruth, right? People still talk about the curse of the Bambino to this day. That's kind of like the position they found themselves in. However, when you consider them, you have to get something. If he just walks, and especially if he just goes down the street to go play with the Dodgers, then you look worse. The Morenos already don't have a great reputation, but you got nothing for Shohei Ohtani, and you didn't make the playoffs once in his tenure. Again, I've mentioned it before, baseball hell. This feels way worse than even like the Pirates.
Yeah, I don't think losing out on I think they traded their number 7, their number 10, a couple other smaller prospects to try and buy at the deadline. I don't think that's going to be the difference between the Angels turning a corner versus where they are now. Look, they're going to suck when Ohtani leaves. They suck when Ohtani was there. So they're going to suck when Ohtani leaves. That's part of the equation for the Angels. So I guess I understand that part of it, but you're absolutely right about the trade part. And I'm not the biggest fan of Jaron Carabas, but he made a great point, which is basically like the team that you trade Shohei Ohtani to is likely the team that he will go into the Hall of Fame with their logo on his hat, right? So that's a really difficult position to find yourself in. Of your entire reputation as a general manager is going to be based on this one trade. It's going to be this one moment and what you do with this player. And while I understand that they would have liked to have had a couple top prospects in trading Ohtani, and hell, they even dipped into their already not great farm system and got rid of a couple players to trade for 2 years of Giolito and 1 month of C.J. Cron that looks like it's not going to matter anymore because they're going to miss the playoffs. But going through all of that isn't going to be the difference between turning a corner a year faster or a year slower. Like the Angels are fundamentally going to have to reset everything if they're going to try and build this thing back up, because you can't even make it with Ohtani. What's going to happen when you subtract Ohtani from the team?
You have to think that they had a positive report from like Mike Trout come before the deadline. Like they thought that they were going to get him back a lot sooner than he's actually going to come back, because that's the only thing I could think that could really justify them being so overzealous and being buyers at the deadline relative to even other teams. You know, like if you look at who made the most moves at the deadline, like the Angels are actually up there at the top making buying decisions.
They bought the same way that Tampa and Houston and Texas bought at the deadline. That's basically what they did. They're like, we are as close to winning a championship as these teams. Therefore, we're going to make trades like we are one of these teams.
And I almost feel like it's going to be poetic justice that you mentioned trading away your 8th prospect in the system. Watch, they're going to go on to have fantastic careers. I'm just going to call it right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, Kai Bush. You're going to be a future superstar for the White Sox, Kai Bush.
It's just going to be gaining out of that Angels system, gain out of that Angels farm system, and suddenly they're going to be studs. It just amazes me how a team could be so inept at talent evaluation. The fact that like their minor league system for the most part has never really helped their organization, again, aside from Mike Trout.
They hit one player. Even Joe Adell, who is this top prospect that everyone's saying, oh, he's going to come in and be an impact player. Even he's bounced between AAA and the majors for the past few years. So I don't know that part. In terms of the 6-game losing streak, like I went back and looked at the schedule. There's no shame in losing 2 games to the Atlanta Braves. It happens. They're the best team in baseball. They might win 110 games. It's getting swept by the Mariners that really sucks. Like y'all got swept by the Mariners who suck.
That suck and were trading away at the deadline. They literally traded away their closer at the deadline.
And I'm looking at their upcoming schedule. They play 3 at home against the Giants, which, you know, they're a playoff team, 60 wins. The Giants are currently in the playoffs. 3 at Houston, 3 at Texas, 3 at home against Tampa Bay, 3 at home against Ellie De La Cruz and the Cincinnati Reds.
So what you're saying here, because obviously they're already 6 games out of the wild card. They're done. They're cooked.
They're going to need a couple of sweeps in there.
That's a gauntlet right there. You mentioning the schedule, like, because I've heard a couple of like schedule heads talk about it too. It is one of the toughest actually MLB schedules upcoming this next month.
Yeah, they are in a place where they need a sweep against Houston, or at least 2 out of 3. They're going to need to take 2 out of 3 against Texas. They're going to need to take 2 out of 3 against Tampa. Like, they're in a position where these are the teams you wanted to compete against in the playoffs, right? Houston, Texas, Tampa, and they do play Baltimore later on in September. Those are the 4 teams you're chasing in the American League. Those are the 4 teams that have a chance of making it to the World Series. You're going to have to beat those teams just to even have a puncher's chance. Because looking at the standings, this is the other thing that's difficult to think about when you're thinking about trying to catch teams by, say, 5 games or 6 games. The teams that they have to jump right now are Toronto, Seattle, the New York Yankees, and the Boston Red Sox. They have to jump all of those teams in order to get there. So yeah, they might be 6 games back, but they're also 5 teams back of making it to the playoffs in the American League. So I think that the Angels are in trouble, but if they do make the playoffs, they will be one of the World Series favorites, because it means that they will get the 6th seed. They get to play whichever crappy team makes it out of the American League Central, and then they will be on the hottest stretch of any team in baseball that will get them a matchup against the Baltimore Orioles in the divisional series. But yeah, they're probably done. I don't think they're going to be able to beat Houston, Texas, and Tampa Bay 8 out of 9 times. I don't think that's going to happen for the Angels. If anything of the last 10 years of Angels baseball is an indicator, it's probably not going to happen.
Okay, so, you know, we came at this from the playoff angle, from the World Series contender angle. Let's talk about it just from the pure historical angle of Shohei Ohtani's season. So I also will understand from the Angels' decision to not trade from the aspect that you really want him to potentially hit 60 home runs, not for your team. So that's one aspect I can kind of understand, because at bare minimum, if Angels fans can't get excited about making a playoff push for the next 2 months, then at least maybe they can get excited about Shohei potentially setting the AL home run record. Obviously, he's not going to touch Bonds, but he's 23 away from passing Aaron Judge, what he did just literally a year ago. I guess at least is that something to look forward to potentially?
Of course. But Angels fans are used to not having teams that are competing for the playoffs. They're used to having giant statistical records be the marker. If I'm counting correctly, I believe in this stretch of, what is it now? This is the 9th year in a row the Angels aren't going to make the playoffs, because 2014 was the last time they made it. I believe in 9 years, they're going to have 5 American League MVPs, because Trout won 3 and Ohtani's going to win his 2nd this year. That's 5 of the 9 American League MVPs are going to be playing for their team, which that's really exciting. It's fun to watch. I would buy tickets to go watch the Angels play baseball. You just
make it make
something
sense.
Interesting.
Make it make sense, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is what I'm excited about. If I'm buying a ticket to watch the Angels play baseball, I might get a Shohei Ohtani start. But even if I don't get an Ohtani start, I'm going to get to watch him bat 4 or 5 times. And you know what else I'm going to get to see? The Tampa Bay Rays. They're really good at baseball. They might make the World Series. I can go watch them play for like $20 because no one's buying tickets to those games in Anaheim.
And it's funny you mentioned Tampa. I feel as though, like, just when you compare the two teams, Shohei, the singular entity that is Shohei, is way more star power than the entire Tampa Bay Rays roster.
I don't know, man. Randy Arozarena is a star with a capital S, man. Like, that dude I feel has swag. That dude is an all-star. He's amazing.
If I had to look up the statistics on jersey sales, I would just say, like, what is Shohei Ohtani's like total jersey sales compared to the entire Tampa Bay Rays roster?
That is a fair point. I think the top, at the very least, the top 3 players on the Tampa Bay Rays. Because, like, Wander Franco has a relatively popular jersey, so I hear. So Wander Franco, Randy Rosarena, and then pick your third Tampa Bay Ray. I don't know who would be third in that group, but yeah, if you combine those guys, I bet you they're still going to finish behind Shohei Ohtani.
All right, guys. Well, the Shohei Ohtani story continues to go on in Anaheim for at least a couple more months. Was this a horrible, no good, bad decision by Angels ownership in the front office? We'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on all our social medias. From Juju and Kyle, stay safe, happy, and healthy. We will see you next time.